Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get us started. Thank you to everyone who is joining us today. We are delighted to have you join us for our webinar focusing on exploring medicine, society, and culture as it relates to health, specifically focusing on our MSc concentration as part of our Master's in Bioethics and Medical Humanities program here at Case Western Reserve. So I'm Dr. Leah Jeanette. I am the director of the Master's program. I'm also an alum of this master's program. I did this program, 15 years ago. Every year I say it, and it seems like it's even longer than that. And I'm also a clinical ethicist over at University Hospitals. I would like to introduce our panelists. We have Dr. Eileen Anderson and Dr. Jonathan Sadowsky. Eileen, can you go ahead and introduce yourself just briefly?
Oh, sure. I'm Eileen Anderson. I'm a psychological and medical anthropologist in the Department of Bioethics here at Case Western Reserve. And I am our Director of Educational Programs and co-founding director of the Medicine, Society, and Culture concentration and program here as part of the MA program.
Wonderful. And Dr. Sadowsky, can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, hi. So you can see my name on the screen. I won't repeat it, but I'm a historian of medicine. My particular interests include psychiatry and mental health and race and medicine. And I am the other co-founder of the concentration in medicine, society, and culture in the Department of Bioethics.
All right, thank you both. Just quickly, we are going to talk a little bit about Case Western Reserve and the School of Medicine, where we're located. We'll talk more about medical humanities, social medicine, and in the larger context, bioethics. We'll talk specifically about the MA program and the concentration, application process deadlines, student assistantships, financial aid, and we will leave time for Q&A at the end as well. So if you do have questions as we go along, you are welcome to submit them through the Q&A feature here on Zoom. I will try to keep track of the questions. We'll probably hold them till the end, unless I feel like there's something we need to answer right away. But feel free to submit at any point during the presentation. So Dr. Anderson, do you want to first talk about where we're positioned at the university here at Case Western Reserve?
Yes, thank you so much. So the School of Medicine here at Case Western Reserve is a fabulous place. It's a wonderful school. We are one of 8 schools in the university. And you can see some of the rankings here on the slide. Number 1 in Ohio, named top tier in the United States, very high ranking in terms of research funding, very high ranking in terms of education value added also. And we are one of the basic science departments in the School of Medicine. That situates us in a really exciting place for our MA students and all of our graduate students. And part of the reason for that is as a graduate student in bioethics and medical humanities, you have access to the many resources of our department and our programs, such as medicine, society, and culture. You have access to career development resources that are specific to graduate students in the School of Medicine. In addition, you are part of the university-wide community of graduate studies, which gives a whole other layer of support, resources, and opportunities for students. And then, of course, you're part of the university community and the region. So this kind of world of different nesting dolls gives our students just an incredible amount of access to resources, support, and opportunities that are nearly unparalleled. So it's a really exciting place to be. And the other thing I'll say specifically about medicine, society, and culture is that in that program, you'll hear a little bit later about how all of our students interface with one of 4 main hospital systems in the region. But we also have a lot of opportunities to interface with the other schools, such as the College of Arts and Sciences, schools of dental medicine, nursing, engineering, business, law school, etc. So it is a wonderful place to kind of have as your home base. And then depending on your particular trajectory, there are a lot of places to reach out across the university and the region.
Thank you so much. So one of the questions we get quite a bit when it comes to the master's program and in kind of our department in general is why study bioethics and medical humanities? And one of the things we think about is how healthcare impacts all of us in a myriad of ways, whether it's personal or professional. And because of that, there's a lot of changes, advancements, discussions within medicine or science, technology, and its intersection with things like culture and society. And they lead to big questions that are often ethical concerns, humanity concerns. And so we think of things like, should we intervene? Or if we do, how do we go about that? And what kind of values should inform policy or practice or both? And can we and should we ensure justice and respect for persons and things like research and clinical practice? We could continue on listing lots and lots of questions, but this is just a small sampling of the things we think about as it relates to these very large fields of study. I want to keep moving us forward, though, specifically focusing on exploring medicine, society, and culture. So, Dr. Sadowsky, I'd love to start with you. What are medical humanities and social medicine, and ultimately, why do these things matter?
Well, I think I can answer that. So the humanities, of course, are the related disciplines that have to do with interpretation, human experience. From a humanistic perspective, they include history, literature, philosophy, religious studies. And social medicine refers to the social sciences as they relate to health, medicine, healing, sickness. And that includes anthropology, sociology, psychology. So why do these matter? They matter for a lot of reasons. For one thing, it's one thing to consider an ethical concern. So should we intervene? How should we relate to such and such a population? How can we ensure justice? If you don't know the context that different people come from, then you really are ill-equipped to make competent assistance on ethical questions. By the way, I do want to insert that not all of our students go on to careers as ethicists, but they all go on to careers that do involve ethics in some way. If some become lawyers, some become doctors, some become nurses, but in any event, they need to, if they're concerned with health and medicine, they need to be able to situate that in society and in culture. To give you just one example. So, for example, it's very easy to get frustrated maybe by vaccine hesitancy in certain communities. But vaccine hesitancy has a cultural and social and historical context that you're ill-equipped to address if you don't know that. I want to also, I could give lots and lots of other examples. I could talk about race in medicine, which, as I mentioned, is one of my major interests. There's a lot of other examples I could give, but the other point I want to make before thinking of other examples is that one of the things that makes our program unusual and special is that we combine these. Why does that matter? Many medical humanities programs just do medical humanities. Many social medicine programs just do social sciences. If you do both, you can understand the way they overlap. If you're studying narrative medicine, for example, which is a branch of humanities, you understand that narratives have a social context. They don't just have a structure. If you're studying the sociology or the anthropology of illness experience, you might conversely want to know that these things are informed by narratology, the kinds of stories people tell, the inherited cultural information that we have.
The only thing I want to add to that is to underscore something that was implied, which is another exciting aspect of really foregrounding medical humanities and social medicine is that we are really working across multiple levels of analysis. So we may learn about, and we certainly get exposure to thinking about things like clinical ethics or clinical one-on-one kinds of questions for patient care, for healing. But we are also, these tools of the humanities and social sciences really give us an opportunity to look at other levels of analysis. So we can explore social determinants of disease. We can look at historical and cultural and institutional practices that perhaps create situations where some people are constantly struggling with similar kinds of problems and others aren't. So by looking at not only the individual, but perhaps the communal level, the cultural level, the political boundary level, and other kind of global flows, we can understand problems at multiple levels, which sometimes can give us different lenses with which to work and different opportunities of how to intervene.
So with both of those or several of those concepts in mind, right? Another question we often get is how does bioethics and medical humanities assist in a student's career path? And you guys have both referenced this a little bit. I think one of the things that's really important is in the fields of bioethics, medical humanities, things like social medicine, right? We are incredibly interdisciplinary and interprofessional, multidisciplinary. And so we have a lot of overlap on interests and unique perspectives can be involved as part of this discussion, which also means that we have students coming from a multitude of areas of study. And then they're launched into a variety of professional careers. And that could be going on to a specific career itself or going on to education for that professional or graduate career. And things like clinical and legal professions, regulatory work, arts and humanities, bioethics. And ultimately, we do have students who are looking for discernment. So they know they want to be in health, or they know they want to be in something related to, the things we've discussed, but they're not exactly sure what that looks like, what a career path could be, or how to combine the things that they're interested in. And a program like this, especially with the MSc concentration, is really going to allow students to explore and get mentorship and understand options and be creative for their career path ultimately.
Dr. Jeanette, that's one of my favorite things about this program. We love it when we have students who know I'm coming in and I want to go on and I want to become an MD, or I want to get a PhD in sociology, or, something very specific. But we also love when students come in and think, maybe I want to do this, but maybe I want to do something else clinically. Or I'm kind of interested in social aspects of health, but I don't really know what is the difference between a sociological analysis and an anthropological analysis or something like that. Or maybe I want to work in a nonprofit, but maybe I want to think about global health. What do people do in that? So I think the components of this program that we'll be going over offer students such a broad lens on many options for their future studies or careers. And it's always so exciting to watch the discernment process occur across the year.
I have to add, by the way, that in addition to having diverse futures, our students have very diverse paths. They come from all different parts of the country. They come from all different kinds of ethnic, cultural backgrounds. They come from different parts of the world, foreign other countries sometimes. And as you can see, they come with a very, very wide array of academic backgrounds. And everybody benefits from this because everyone in seminar can learn from the people who have really been heavily focused on science, learn a lot from the students who were English majors.
It's an excellent point of the diversity is not just one thing. It can be a whole host of things. And to give more examples, here are both in the majors list and in this career path list, these are just a small sampling. We could have slide upon slide upon slide of the different directions our students are coming from and the places they're going. So
these are based on actual students who we've had in recent years, and there are well over 1,000 alum of the program.
So I want to continue to move us forward and talk more specifically about the master's program and courses and kind of the concentration itself. So we are currently in our 29th year of our Master of Arts in Bioethics and Medical Humanities. It's very exciting to be that far along in kind of our history. The program is designed typically to be done in 1 year or 2 semesters, but we do have part-time options. The majority of students do complete it in that 1 year time frame, and it could be as much as 3 semesters if needed. There's 30 credits for the program, and it's a very customizable curriculum. There's so much inherently built into the program to allow for electives to customize based on the career path and the trajectory you're seeing for yourself, and also in consideration of the concentrations. We do offer 160 hours of clinical ethics rotations for students. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. And we also have short-term study abroad courses that students can take as part of the electives. And again, we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Each student is assigned an academic advisor, and we really try to match students with advisors who have similar interests or career trajectories or areas of research that they're interested in to help with personalized advising. And then we also have dual degree options. If you're interested, you can reach out to us and we'll talk more about that one-on-one. So in terms of our curriculum, I know this slide can be a little bit overwhelming, but what we like to highlight is while by default, everyone is in what we call our traditional program, we do have 3 concentrations. And you can see that there are some courses everyone takes, and then there's other things that are very much customizable. And so for all of our students, they're taking Foundations in Bioethics and Medical Humanities 1 and 2, clinical ethics rotations at least 1 semester, and the capstone. And then everything else is customizable. So I want Dr. Anderson and Dr. Sadowsky to talk more specifically about the concentration and the courses and electives and those kind of things.
Yeah, can I start? So Foundations of Medicine, Society, and Culture, the core course, it's been around since 2016, and it's radically interdisciplinary. And we study narrative, we study diagnosis, we study sociology of the sick role, we study stigma, we study drugs, we study infectious disease, we study disability. We look at all of these different topics. And as I stressed earlier, there's no one disciplinary lens. We consider philosophy, we consider anthropology, we consider history, and it's pretty exciting.
So that course in the fall gives people some great exposure to a lot of the pillars that social medicine and medical humanities are based upon. And a more exploratory course that all concentrators will also take is a seminar that is designed for breadth. So this is an experience where each student will get opportunities to attend events at different departments across the campus, across all those 8 schools, maybe at area institutions like museums or the orchestra or film festivals. Certainly, there are many opportunities at our area hospitals where there is some topical area related to medical humanities and social medicine, really including arts and medicine. There is such a wide array of resources offered that we don't want students to come into the School of Medicine and just stay here. You could and have an incredibly rich opportunity, but we want you to see all of the opportunities across the campus and beyond. And so there's a personalized process of figuring out what kind of array will work for any individual. Then your electives have to be in some way related to medicine, society, and culture. That is not a hard thing to accomplish, both within the department and in neighboring departments in the School of Medicine, in the College of Arts and Sciences, and across the campus. So you can see some of the types of topics that are courses that we offer. And this is where you're talking to your advisor. You're talking to your MSc advisors, which easily could be one of us, and kind of getting some feedback on, given your interests, given your goals, given your trajectory, what courses might be right for you to take as electives. No two people's electives look exactly the same. What I will say is we did take a quick look that we do offer 2 other concentrations in research ethics and in policy. And sometimes our students will have a passion and a reason to actually want to have 2 of those concentrations. And they're designed in such a modular fashion that if you had a reason why you wanted to take your electives and apply them toward either a research ethics concentration or a policy concentration, you could in fact do that successfully. And every year a couple people do. The last thing I want to mention are our clinical rotations or optional practicum. So you'll hear just a little bit more about the clinical rotations that everybody does in the fall. In the spring, we offer a switch in hospital settings from public to private, private to public, to understand that even the hospital itself has a culture of practice. However, in medicine, society, and culture, for some of our students, they are better served by a different kind of practicum experience. So if a student knows for sure they're going to go on to a PhD, perhaps they're doing some kind of research embedded in an ongoing project. We have some exciting opportunities that we've been developing with partner organizations such as the Cleveland Natural History Museum, where our students will actually be doing original research and helping curate exhibits in a human health wing of the museum, which is incredible. We also have students who can work with other types of health serving organizations, such as with refugees, or specifically oriented toward midwifery, public health. There's a huge array of options, and every year a student will come up with a proposal or an option that is novel. So there's different ways to think about getting those practicum hours and practica experiences.
So speaking of the clinical rotations, we've kind of mentioned it a few times. So our clinical ethics rotations are something that our students are very much in favor of. It's actually some of the reasons why students choose our program. We get great feedback on these. So for students, they're all going to do at least 1 semester. Most do 2. But as was mentioned, depending on your concentration and your desire for practicum and things, it can change. But it's essentially 80 hours each semester. You will be assigned specifically to a hospital that given semester. So the goal is to have you at one public, so either Metro or the VA, or one private, UH or Cleveland Clinic. And you get to see a variety of things from patients, during morning rounds or in the ICU or interdisciplinary rounds to committee meetings. I think one of the interesting things is to be a fly on the wall of a transplant selection meeting and hear why patients are placed on a transplant list. Why are they listed, right? We try to be as objective as we can, but there are some things that you can't get away from subjectivity. And so you have a committee that weighs in on these things. And then there's also the opportunity to go one-on-one with healthcare professionals across the hospital, and going with different services as well. I think this speaks to also that incorporation of the idea of students searching for discernment. So you get to see a lot of services across the hospital and a lot of healthcare professions. And it really can help students as they're thinking about how to potentially have a career that is in health or related to health in some way.
I think it's worth underscoring that lots of programs in bioethics or medical humanities or social medicine across the country do not have this. There are a lot of programs that do not have these clinical rotations. It's a real big selling feature, and it also creates exciting synergies with the more purely academic work. In seminar, people will be discussing a historical or a philosophical issue, and someone will say, oh, well, this reminds me of something I saw on rounds the other day, and they can really embody it in a very specific experience they had.
Yeah, it's absolutely an excellent point. We also, as I mentioned, offer short-term study abroad electives. This upcoming spring, we'll be going to Paris over spring break, and we'll be going to Granada, Spain in May for 2 weeks. These count as 3-credit electives. Every year, we're looking at new courses and new offerings. So depending on, when you join the program, we could have different offerings. And it could even be locations that are not even listed yet because they're in development, they're in discussion. But these are great. And they're really, I feel like, a tangible way to understand how culture impacts health, because you're literally going to another country and getting to experience that. So we're very excited by those. To change gears just a little bit, I do want to highlight a couple of things about Cleveland. Dr. Sadowsky, do you want to mention some of the great features we have to offer as a location where Case Western Reserve is?
Yeah, so it's a great place to live and even if you're just going to be here for a year. The cost of living is low. As you can see, there's a ton to do. Any kind of music you like classical, you like jazz, you like rock. We have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We have the second largest theater district in the entire country. Cleveland Museum of Art is sometimes ranked second only to the Met in New York. However, the CMA is better because it's not so crowded and you can actually see the paintings. I could go on and on. There's the metro parks, the public library system. It's really a very unusual place, and there's a lot of assets.
And I would just add that a little known gem right on our own campus is the Dittrich Center for Medical History, which was one of the finest museums of medical history in the country and in the world. So the opportunities and accessibility of unbelievable resources, 20 minutes and you can be in a national park, and then a ring of metro parks. Whatever your interest, there is just incredible accessibility and quality of life.
So for the sake of time, I do want to say that if anyone has questions, please feel free to start submitting them in the Q&A as we kind of wrap up. So if you are interested in applying to the master's program, you can see here what our requirements are. One of the things we do quite often is we pre-screen. So I meet with a lot of students one-on-one and talk about their interest in the program. Are they the right fit? Are they going to be competitive for an application and all those things? What could their schedule look like? What is, just what would their experience be like for the year that they're here? And so I'm happy to meet with students and talk more about our application process and materials. In terms of financial aid, we do have something called student assistantships, which allows for a partial tuition waiver, and in exchange, you'll be assigned a slot for either assisting with teaching, research, or administrative roles within the department. Typically, this application will launch in January, and anyone who has submitted a master's application is eligible to apply. We also have a great financial aid office here at Case, and kind of traditional financial aid options are available. And if you want to learn more about tuition, you can see that through grad studies. In terms of the timeline, we are currently taking applications for fall 2025. Our next deadline, we have a priority 1 deadline on December 1st. If you can submit a completed application by that date, we will render an admission decision before the end of the year. If you can't hit that date, that's okay. We do rolling admission. And so typically it takes us about 2 to 3 weeks to render an admission decision once we have a completed application. If you are a current undergrad at Case and you're looking to apply as part of the CBM program, please reach out to me. Your fall deadline would be March 1st. Ultimately, we do have a final deadline of August 1st if you're planning to join us in the fall. And so keep that in mind. But like I said, rolling admission allows us to get decisions rendered fairly quickly. I'm looking to see if we have any questions. I know I had at least one question that was submitted ahead of the webinar that I want to ask. And Dr. Sadowsky, you actually kind of answered this a little bit, but what makes this master's program like unique and stand out from other programs in bioethics and medical humanities and social medicine type programs?
Yeah, well, the 2 things that I mentioned that most come to mind are the opportunity to do the clinical ethics rotations and the serious, deep, and radical interdisciplinarity of it. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a comparable program with faculty from so many disciplinary backgrounds. It's not just that we have an interest in sociology or an interest in history or an interest in anthropology. We have trained anthropologists, trained historians, and we also have trained ethicists who come out of a traditional ethics philosophy background.
Dr. Anderson, anything to add?
More. Yeah, I would just add kind of where we began, to take those extraordinary features and the rich diversity of our classes, and then to embed them in an institutional context that has so much to offer graduate students in a region that is so interwoven with the university and welcomes our students is just really an extraordinary overall experience. Most of our students use superlative words like that after they leave the program and think about how it's impacted where they're going in their lives and their careers.
That's great. I'm looking to see if we have any other questions. We did get one question that was regarding letters of recommendation and interfolio. So if you are using interfolio for your letters of recommendation, you can still list the individuals that are writing your letters in your application, and then have interfolio send us the letters, bioethics@case.edu, and we can upload them on the backside. So we have ways of assisting you in this process. Letter writing and letters of recommendation can always come through that mechanism.
And Dr. Jeanette, if I just have some questions about my one-off situation, or is this program right for me, what do I do?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would recommend emailing us, bioethics@case.edu. I am the one who checks that email on a regular basis. I am happy to meet with students one-on-one. I do a lot of Zoom meetings, so we can talk about specific situations, circumstances, unique questions, and really it functions like a pre-screening for the application, and you'll get a better sense of, is the program the right fit, and how does this program really fit into your specific career path? So happy to meet with students. Also, we can refer you to others to meet as well. So if you want to talk with Dr. Anderson or Dr. Sadowsky, we can also make that connection through emails as well.
Absolutely. Happy to talk with anybody.
So I think we have one question that I do want to answer as our last question, and I think this is a great one to end on. What qualities, experiences, and interests do you look for in candidates for this program? It's a great question for us to kind of end on, of like, what kind of applicants are we looking at?
Well, no, you go.
Oh, I was just going to say, again, we've already mentioned how we really value a diversity of experiences, of backgrounds of students coming into this program. We are very individualized in how we assess individual candidates. We are not using a quantitative matrix for how we're kind of slicing and dicing. We evaluate each individual candidate who comes to us. So we are looking for that curiosity. We are looking for students who want to understand the complexities of bioethical and medical humanities questions that are going on in terms of these big questions of human health and well-being that we are facing in so many different ways in the world in addressing in this program. We want to make sure that every student who comes to us can be successful. So we get students sometimes who perhaps started down something like a very hard science program and then realize perhaps that's not for me and change directions. So their GPA, total GPA, doesn't reflect perhaps what their capacity is. We take those kinds of factors into account as we are assessing individual cases. We also have an interview conversation with each applicant so we can really get a sense, and a personal statement, which is fairly short, but that helps us get a sense of who are you and why does this appeal? Why does this program, this kind of pathway of study appeal to you? So we're doing this kind of individualized evaluation of each student. Dr. Sadowsky, did you want to add?
I would say, to make it very short, I would say two very good qualities, although there may be many others we look for, are intellectual curiosity and a passion for justice.
Well, on that note, I think this is a great time to wrap up our webinar. Thank you both so much, Dr. Sadowsky and Dr. Anderson, for being here today to talk more about the MSc concentration. As I said, please, to the those who are live with us or those who are watching the recording, please feel free to email us, bioethics@case.edu. We're all very happy to talk with you more about the program or the concentration or any kind of questions you may have. So we are here and we are hopeful that you'll consider putting an application in and maybe even see you next fall. So thank you both so much for your time.
Thank you,
all
Dr.
for
Jeanette, and
attending.
thanks for joining us today.